Welcome. This is the Know Your Numbers podcast with your host, Chris McCormick. And today's guest is a very, very dear friend and quite frankly, a great mentor as well. Todd Isberner. He is the author of a book, What Every Man Needs to Know, How to Master Faith, Family, Finances, and Fitness. And also he's just a great coach and leader and so, a fearful man of God who I'm happy to have aligned with. So Todd, welcome to the show, man. So excited to be here and talking to you.
Thank you, Chris. I want to hang out with you a lot if that's what you think of me. So that is really cool. Thank you.
Hey man, I would love to hang out with you more. I think we do need to do that more. A little background on Todd and I. We met at a Upgrade Your Human event this past summer. We were running around the woods of Minnesota and swimming in lakes and doing all sorts of things. And then he was kind enough to gift me his book. And then from there, really got to develop a relationship with him and some other guys and just dive into this book. So I'm excited to be sharing his wisdom with the world. Todd, I'll start by asking what got you to write this book, because I know that you've had a journey with the Lord and you do a lot of speaking engagements. You use your voice for good, but I do believe this might be the first book you wrote, unless I'm mistaken.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
I literally one day, just a couple of years ago, sat down and said, what do you want to do this summer that's going to have a payoff that you can contribute to the lives of others? And God just brought me this idea, just write this book. It's not that complicated.
Yep.
And share within this book the things that you've learned in these 4 foundational areas of life: your faith, your family, your fitness, and your finances.
Yep.
So, I sat down, I put an outline together, and I thought, there's enough life experience based on mistakes and wins that I've made that I could share by way of helping guys really establish this firm foundation. And finances is a big part of it. Is there not a day that goes by where we're not dealing with finances? So right. I knew that would have to be sort of a key component of this book. And I did. I sat down, I was on my deck half the summer, maybe 20 minutes to a couple hours a day, just banging things out. Sometimes I'd be talking to the computer. And so this book is the outcome of that experience. And God helped me just sort of shape it in a way where the book is kind of designed like a guidebook, an instruction manual, if you will, a handbook, where it gives guys an opportunity to really dig down, understand the principles that govern these areas, and then to literally fulfill some assignments and action points. And Chris, you've been through it. I developed a course on it, and some good actions to be able to to do, so that you really learn the understanding and the meaning of money and how it applies in your life.
Yeah, man. And that's the best part of this book, is that there are action steps. And for me, when I was preparing for our discussion, I was looking back at the chapter on finances. I was like, dude, I need to do this again. Like, it's
yes,
like you can apply it at any point, and no matter how recent or far off you did it. So that's something that I'm going to be looking to do again. And I'd love to hear a little bit about. So I do talk finances, obviously a numbers guy, CPA, but I do also try to relate it back to the Bible. And that's what I love about you, Todd, and your works, is you're always looking to bring others to the light and show them what God has in store. And so when you're writing a book about finances specifically, obviously it's more than just that, but a lot of people in today's world have a messed up view about money. Either you can't make a lot of it, or it's all bad and there's nothing good that can come from it. So I'd love to hear what that experience was like when you were diving into these topics, not maybe even before, and like your entire walk with God, how that has shaped your view on money and finances and business.
Yeah, man, that's good. So it really kind of started for me as a young boy. There was a TV show on at that time called The Millionaire. And it literally was a show about a guy who had a lot of money, and he would write out checks for $1 million. And then he would have his assistant go and deliver them to somebody that he selected. The guy would knock on the door, present this check for $1 million, and the person was just blown away.
Yep.
Well, I love the way they played the story out, because some people used it for good, some people completely blew it. And I started to really learn from that. There could be great value in having a lot of money if it were used in the right way. So here I am, I think I'm around age 10 or 11, something like that. And I thought I'm going to be a millionaire and I'm
Yeah.
going to give away, millions of dollars because I
Yep.
thought that's pretty cool.
Right.
So then, you start to grow up
Mhm.
and you start to be absorbed by the culture and what the world thinks and says about money.
Yep.
And by the time I was in college and just following college, the last thing I wanted to do is make millions of dollars to give it away. I want to
Yeah.
make millions of dollars to spoil me.
Right.
And so I had the complete wrong perspective. And here's, I think, the main reason why. It's very hard to ask somebody what their definition of success is
Mhm.
without them bringing money somewhere into that definition.
Yeah.
I mean, just think to yourself right now that 5 quote successful people that you know, I'm guessing that of those 5 successful people that you know, somewhere in there would be a financial status that is above average.
Yeah.
So we already sort of started off on the wrong foot, believing that success and a lot of money are the same thing.
Mhm.
And that's really, really sad.
Yeah.
Because you can
Yep.
be very successful and not have a lot of money.
Right.
It depends on how you define it. So one of the exercises we go through in the book is like, so what's your definition of success? To
Mhm.
try to strip it away from the idea that having a lot of money means you're successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie with Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise years
Yeah.
ago?
Yep. Yep.
There's a great scene in there where the football player that he's an agent for, that he's representing, is trying to do a deal to get him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, the football player wants to know whether or not he's really going to come up with the money. So he was making Tom Cruise say, show me the money,
Mhm.
show me the money, because the money was equivocated with validation of who he was as a person and success.
Right.
And
Right.
Chris, I'm convinced a lot of people in the back of their heads every day are saying, show me the money. If I can show you the money, I'm going to show you I'm successful.
Yeah.
And so the number one thing we've got to do is sort of split those two apart and understand money is just a tool.
Mhm.
It can play into so many great ways that we can live out our purpose and God's plan for us
Mm.
by making a lot of money
Yep.
and using a lot of money to benefit others.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
all
all.
about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Make
And
a lot of
me
money.
too. But yeah, exactly. But it's tough because I mean, I'll say quite frankly, from where I stand, I mean, this year, and at the time of recording, it's January 19th, so we're 19 days into the new year. A lot of my view of this year was around wealth and wealth building and
Yeah.
bringing strategies to the general public. So what am I doing? I'm diving into all the books I could possibly read about finances and building wealth and investing in real estate. And then I stumble upon this book, The Route to Riches by Chuck Bentley. And it's a faith-based book on what it means to steward your money well and go after God's purpose on your life. And it's got me questioning like a lot of my thoughts into what this year was going to transpire to be. Because yeah, we can have these big goals, but at the root of it, what is driving us? And that's kind of what you're tying into the success topic. So Todd, I'd love to hear a little bit about your definition of success, because
Yeah.
it is hard
For me,
to,
go ahead.
I was going to say, it is hard to separate the amount of money from the actual success and what it
Yeah.
means to be successful.
It's true. So I'm at the stage and age of life where I've gone through lots of sort of rewriting of the definition of success in my
Yep.
life. And right now, this is going to sound like way stupidly generic, oversimplistic, but I have to say it anyhow. My meaning of the meaning of success for me is every day doing everything I can to honor God
Mhm.
and bless others.
Mm.
I can bless others by giving a phone call and giving a smile and giving a hug and doing all those
Yep.
kinds of things. But I also like to bless others by providing financially for them as well. So that's
Yeah.
part of what God has given me and the place in life that he's brought me to.
Mhm.
And earlier you said, sometimes people maybe distort this understanding or this meaning of money, and they think, well, probably shouldn't make a lot of money because then I'm not going to be very spiritual, or maybe it'll distract me from serving God and whatnot. And I mean, I totally understand that, but the reality is that God talks a lot about money in the
Yep.
Bible.
Yeah.
And you've maybe already shared this with your audience, and maybe your listeners have heard this, but the Bible has 500 verses on prayer.
Wow.
fewer than 500 verses about faith,
Mm.
and more than 2,000 verses about money.
Yeah.
So I think there's something important to pay attention to.
Right.
Now, I believe that God uses it as one of the most phenomenal tools he has at his disposal to teach us, to train us, to discipline us, to help us in all areas of life. Because the person who can really literally control, manage, if you will, what's happening with money in his life
Mm-hmm.
is going to have the disciplines built in to handle a lot of other things,
Right.
from their health to relationships to work ethic to everything it takes. If you can control or manage your money well,
Mm-hmm.
understanding there's a higher purpose involved than just having something nice sitting in the driveway,
Yeah.
then you're going to be able to formulate disciplines in all these other areas of life. And that will lead to a definition of success for you.
Wow. That's awesome, man. And I think that's, oh, that's great to unpack. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that over. But for now, something you touched upon is the idea that
Yeah.
you can bless someone with a smile and a prayer
Yeah.
and all these kind gestures. But one thing that came to mind when you said that was the Bible verse about the poor man, and
Mm.
when I'm gonna butcher this, but
That's right.
Jesus basically says, like, how kind of you to offer prayers. Like, say, I'll pray for you. Yeah, the homeless man on the side of the street, I'll pray for you. But what's that going to do? Like, he needs food, he needs love, and he needs some sort of
Yeah.
monetary device to help him get there. Now, I'm not saying go and give away all your wealth to the guy sitting on the side of the street, but sometimes prayer isn't the only answer. And I
Mm.
think that's where
Mm.
making a lot of money and giving that money back comes
You are
into
so
play.
right, my man. You are
Mm.
so right. I'm thinking of two great examples of that based on what I'll call the John Wesley rule. John
Yep.
Wesley was a preacher way back, and he had a very simple rule when it came to money, and that is
Mm-hmm.
you make as much as you can.
Yeah.
You save or invest as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and you give away as much as you can.
Yeah.
It's a simple governing principle. And two guys who did that well. One is Letournier, who was from Switzerland and built the company that makes, these big, huge monster earth moving machines.
Mm-hmm.
That was his deal. And he made millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And he made a decision that rather than give away 10%, because of the way God has blessed him, why don't I just keep 10% and give
Yeah.
away 90%?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
blessed so many people as a result of that.
Wow.
I'm thinking about, I'm forgetting his Millard something. He was the one who created Habitat for Homes, or Homes for
Okay. Yeah.
that ministry that builds
Right.
homes for people.
Yep.
And they're worldwide. And he was, again, a very wealthy multi-millionaire who had
Mm-hmm.
homes in France and south of France, everywhere else. And he when he was born again, he got radically sold out. And he began to read these scriptures about money.
Mm.
And he and his wife both decided to literally sell everything. Now, this is
Yep.
not for everybody. They sold everything. They had enough to live off of, sold
Yep.
everything, and formed this ministry where they could begin to build homes for those who didn't have any.
Wow.
Since they had all these homes, they thought, okay, this is stupid. Why don't we build homes for people who don't have any?
Right. Right.
And his whole life was lived out. He always had more than enough to meet his needs, but
Mm-hmm.
his whole desire was to be able to help others. Why think about the opportunities God can give you when you've got more than enough money for yourself and your family?
Right.
What's next? Chris, some of the greatest joy I get is when I can help. I've got some friends internationally who live in developing countries who just
Yep.
don't have much. One is
Right.
a pastor with a church. And I'm telling you, when I wire money over there, he just catches fire.
Yep.
And it's not
Yeah.
a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
What lights my fire is to see what God can do. And I sort of vicariously work through that little pastor in
Yep.
Nepal, right?
Yep.
This is what drives me. That's why I say, like, man, let's make as much as we can. We
Yeah.
can be so generous in helping others.
Oh, that's incredible. And when you say that, what comes to mind is reaping what you sow. And
Mm.
I think a lot of times when you're talking about the Bible and money, and that scripture in particular, people are like, okay, so I'm gonna reap, I'm gonna give money away, and then I'm gonna get it back. God's gonna bless me with more. And that's not really what the idea is. And you're kind of touching upon it here, Todd, is that when you reap what you sow, you're giving away, and then what you reap is the spirit, is the joy that it brings you and others, and the mark that it leaves on this earth. So I think that's that's something that I'm starting to learn much more, is like, it's not necessarily going to lead to greater wealth. Chances are it will, because it is God's resource. But at the end of the day, if it makes you more like Christ and more of who God called you to be, that's the ultimate purpose in life.
You are speaking truth, my brother, all the way. Now,
Mhm.
this is not to say that there won't be temptations along the way
Yep.
to misuse money
Right.
or to have the wrong motives in making money, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Jesus warned us of that. He said, you can only serve one master. You
Yeah.
can't serve both money and God. And
Mhm.
the temptation is we begin to slip a little bit without knowing it, turning money and making money into an idol.
Yep.
Because of what it, even the idea of, okay, I'm gonna make a lot of money so I can give a lot of money away. If we're not careful, we become distracted from being intimate with God and following his lead and doing everything for his honor.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing that out there because we're all human. We all have what the Bible refers to as sort of like this sinful flesh, a tendency to
Yep.
go the way of the world, if you will. And, you know, it's going to hit us. It just
Right.
is. And we just
Yeah.
have to be prepared to recognize it and then counter it with
Yeah.
actions that truly are, like you said, Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. And yeah, it's important to point out that nobody is perfect, and at the end of the day, we are human, and that's how God created us. So it's not going to come easy, and it's not going to come right away. I've already, like, even since discussing money in the Bible on this show, it's been a struggle. Your pain points and what's really driving you starts to come out, and you start to really see the
Yeah.
sinful nature of man. So
See how God is using it as a tool? I mean, it's just a great tool that God
yeah,
has.
yep,
It's a
yeah,
resource that he puts in our life
yep.
so he can train us in all kinds of other ways.
Right, exactly. And I like the discussion of purpose, and that's really what I think more people are looking for. And I think that's what God is calling all of us to do, is to find your purpose in life, and go as fast and far as you can in pursuing that.
Mm.
And now, Todd, a question I would like to ask you is, what do you say to the person who is having trouble finding that purpose? You know, maybe
Mm.
they're like, yeah, I know money's not everything. I'd love to make some more money, but I don't really know where
Mm.
God's calling me. I don't know what that purpose is. I'd love to find out, but
Yeah.
how do I do it?
Well, I'm gonna make a comment that probably isn't gonna go over well with everybody, but sometimes we make too big of a deal over knowing our purpose, and
Mm,
I say that only because if we get too fixated on like what is the reason I'm here on planet Earth, and I keep trying to figure that out for the big picture, I might lose what God's purpose for me is today in the
yep.
present moment, right? Where he brings something in front of me and I don't recognize it as a way that God is going to fulfill his purpose through me by
Hmm.
responding to that opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's not to take away from ultimately. I'd like to have a goal that I want to set out here that I'm working towards, or I'm striving towards. I'm trying to be instead of just do.
Hmm.
And I think that's the main component in figuring out your purpose.
Yeah.
Who is it that you want to be versus what it is that you want to do?
Hmm.
The what you want to do is going to be an outcome of who you are as a person, because
Right.
God's already wired all these cool things inside of you and they start to bubble up and you're not sure what that's really all about. I say go with, if you're putting God first, you go with the desires of your heart. Because if you've delighted yourself in the Lord, like Psalm 37 says,
Hmm.
then he's implanted his desires inside your heart. So it may take some time. That's cool. It's going to change around a bunch of times as well. But it starts by asking yourself these questions. And that is like, who do I want to be?
Hmm.
What really lights my fires?
Yep.
And how does that fit in with who God says he wants me to be and what I believe he wants me to do? And you
Yeah.
just start like writing these things out. There's several resources you can go to too. Like, if you're older, you look back in your childhood. What did I really like to do when I was a kid? Well, I like being Robin Hood, Superman, a couple of the other mighty heroes.
Yep.
that's
Right.
that's what I love to be. So I started to shape a purpose for my life as somebody who was there to lead and to help others.
Yeah.
And then God brings you the opportunity for the day.
Yep. That's
Will you
incredible,
act on
man.
it?
And
Yeah.
as a shameless plug on your book, I think that's a great resource to go to if you do have these
Thank you.
questions, because there are some guidelines, and it's just, I mean, all these topics: faith, family, fitness, and finances. If you can figure out each and every one of those, not right away, but like over a time period, you'll start to understand more of what God is calling you to. And I think that's the most important thing, is understanding that it's not fixed and it will change, but
It's good.
taking that first step and pursuing his purpose and saying, I'm going to do this and it's going to do this, is what he needs. And then again, staying in his word and finding what it is he's calling you to.
Yeah. And sometimes, Chris, living out your purpose doesn't mean you're always going to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
like there's going to be some pain along the way as well as when you live out your purpose. And that's part of God's purpose for you, is to grow during those painful times. So, hey man, you're right on in the way that you're sort of putting the first building block in place, and that is to understand who you are and what your relationship with God is all about. And that's one of the first things we dive into in the first section of the book. So thanks for plugging that.
Hey.
Yeah, for those who do want to pick it up, it's there on Amazon in 3 different versions. See Kindle, print, and Audible. And if it helps you, great. And you can certainly go to my website and get a hold of me if you want, more information.
Yeah, amen, man, amen. And I don't want to let you go so soon, because I mean, one, we could carry this conversation on forever,
Okay,
but I know you got things to do. And are you down? You're down in Florida,
No,
right? That's
down in Florida for a little bit. Just so grateful we have an opportunity to get some warmth and sunshine away from the Minnesota brutal cold and snow.
Yeah, it is brutal. I was just there. So, Todd, when we started, you mentioned that not a day goes by where we don't think about finances, and that's especially true for the business owner and the entrepreneur, and I mean just about everyone, especially males. I'd love to hear your take on why that is, and any pieces of advice you might have for somebody that might be struggling financially, or God just has them in that season right now. How can they figure that out and start to make moves?
I think the more you know about your financial situation, the better you can get equipped and prepared to take on money issues. I don't know of anybody in my life who hasn't hit the deck on some sort of money issue, some financial problem of some kind. And as I mentioned earlier, I really believe God uses all of this as a tool to help shape us in other areas of life. But guaranteed today, it's very likely you're going to escape the day without thinking about money, or without actually spending money by buying something or accumulating money.
Right.
So it is just one of those components that come into our lives every single day. It is just the way the world works. Before money, we were trading goats and chickens, right? So it's not anything new. It's there, and it's a reality, and it's one we can embrace. But for those who are really struggling, the best thing we can do is just do an assessment of where I am and how I got to where I am. Because once we sort of take an inventory, if you will, put together like a balance sheet on where your finances are really at, unless we do that, you can't get perspective on where I was, where I am, and where I need to go. And once I fully understand how I got to where I am, I can begin to learn from some of the mistakes I made and some of the wins that I had, and then duplicate those wins. That would allow me then to begin to put together a plan for making money and managing that money. And I know the word budget sometimes just drives people, because like, budget, who does a budget these days, right? So don't call it anything you want. The reality is you just want to make sure that your income is not being exceeded by your outgo. That's it. Pretty simple. My dad raised me that way. He said, son, just don't spend more money than you make. Okay, Dad.
Right.
You'd be amazed at how much success financially can come out of that one simple principle. Just stop spending more than you're making.
Yeah. And that's man, you're touching on all my favorite topics, because I touch upon that a little bit. I mean, the current economy where we're in the US, and we're in debt, for lack of a better word and lack of a better explanation. But what I attribute that to is a spending problem, both at the government level and at the individual level. And I think if more people can understand that it is simplicity that wins, and just saying, okay, I made this much money, I have this much to spend, now what can I do with it? That's the rest will follow. But if you're doing Oh, that looks good. That looks good. I'm going to buy that, and maybe I'll make more money then. That's where you get into some trouble. And I think that's what Todd's saying here. So, man, I, I again can say that we can go on forever, but I don't want to take up too much
No,
of your time. I would
no,
love to.
I listen. I don't mind at all.
Oh, okay.
We're good. We're good.
Now you do have a history in the speaking world. You were a radio personality for quite a bit of time. I'd love
I
to hear.
raised money. I raised
Yeah.
money for
Hey.
others, for nonprofit organizations, and we loved
Wow.
it. Everybody was like, "Oh man, how can you? I mean, how do you do that? How do you ask people to, for money? Not
Yeah.
hard when you got a great, outcome for your money."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right.
we worked with ministries across the country and other parts of the world, literally producing on-air fundraisers on radio stations
Mm-hmm.
to invite listeners to participate financially in charitable contributions, and it
Wow.
was a blast. We loved it.
Wow. That's awesome. And that's a great question is how can we change our mindset around sales? Because when you're raising money, you are selling.
Yeah.
That's the art of selling.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, myself included. So what would you recommend to somebody who's looking to put themselves out there, generate income, but has a hard time asking for money or finding the right price point? Or
Yeah, first and foremost, get rid of the stigma that you're a salesperson. And I'm not saying that there's anything bad about that, but unfortunately, most people perceive sales to mean somebody's going to try to talk me into something that I don't want.
Yep.
And because all of us have experienced that, we've been talking to things we didn't want. We got buyer's remorse and all that. But I think the most important part of that, and I had to go through this myself in my early days of my business, and that is, what do I have to offer this person that I truly believe will make their life better or their ministry more successful? And if I came into the conversation believing, wait a minute, I really truly do have something that they could benefit from.
Yep.
And once we get going in the conversation, if during the course of that conversation, I picked up on, this is really just not the right fit, I'm not going to be able to benefit them the way they need to be benefited or their ministry, then I literally would feel good about just not having to have, quote, this sale.
Yep.
And the opposite side of that is, what feels better for you when you bring an opportunity to someone to secure your services or your products because they're going to be better off as a result of it. And they actually have that experience after doing business with you. Man, that will charge your sales juices up big time. You have to start with that belief. If you're not confident enough, then you need to get back inside your head and rearrange a few things.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, do I have something of value? And if you're not sure, ask somebody else who knows and loves you and can answer that honestly for you.
Yeah. That's so good. And I think that's a big thing that we need to wrap our head around, is that the marketplace is just providing value. And when you can provide value, you can charge for that value. And as long as that value is greater than what you're bringing in the eyes of the recipient, then it's rewarding on all cases. And I'm not saying you have to drop your prices, but provide great value. And the value doesn't have to be a monetary value. Right now, Todd is providing value through his words, and then his book too is a great value that goes far greater than a price. And it changes the way you think and the way that you see all these topics. So I think once the listener can wrap their head around that, then they're setting themselves up for success. And it's not a quick fix. It comes with time, and there's many other steps that need to be taken along in the process. So Todd, man, I love your perspective, and
Thank you.
I'm so glad that God put us in each other's paths, and I'm so excited for what's to come. For everybody listening out there, he does have a course coming out for all the young men looking to gain control of their faith, their family, their fitness, and their finances.
It's the 4 F's.
Yeah, the 4 F's. And dude, I took it. Todd is a light to all of us. He's really on a mission, and he's also pairing up with one of our other friends too. So Todd, any last minute piece of advice before we get to the one final question.
Well, bless you, Chris, for saying that first and foremost. I'm glad God connected us as well, too. I've told you before, you are a leader, and God is using you and is going to use you in bigger ways because you're willing to put yourself in that place of learning and being disciplined and being held accountable, and then challenging yourself to go beyond it. Anybody who puts themselves in that position automatically by default becomes a leader. So I'm proud of you, and
Wow.
I know great things are ahead of you
Mm.
this year and in
Yep.
the years to come.
Come on.
So yeah, so thanks for having me on. Great words of wisdom. No, not great words of wisdom unless they come from the Bible. I'm
Yep.
just going to real quickly give you, I put together like, all right, here's sort of a quick summary of what the Bible says, what God says about money, what we need to
Yeah.
get in our head. One, God owns everything.
Mm.
Everybody agree with that? God
Right.
owns everything. You came in naked, you're going out the same way.
Yeah.
So whatever I have in my possession in the meantime is gifted by him to me.
Wow.
And number three, since it's all his, I get to actually manage it
Mm.
for him and his purposes and the benefits of me and others. And number four, I should know man anything. No, don't owe man anything except the debt of love. That's a good debt to have. And number five, storing up treasures on earth will do me no good in eternity.
Wow. Yep. Right.
And number six, because I can't take it with me, investing in his work like right now is the best way to lay up treasures in heaven.
That's incredible, man. And yeah, I will be plugging those in the show notes because
All right,
I think that's in the book. That sounds like something I've read. Yeah.
I was reading it right out of there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
and trying to
again,
live
go
it
get
out, by the
Todd's
way.
book,
Yeah.
What Every Man Needs to Know: How to Master Faith, Family, Fitness, and Finances. Follow Todd on all things social. I'll be plugging his Instagram in the show notes as well. And now, Todd, the last question that we ask every guest has to do with the topic of money, and that is, what is one truth about money that most people regard as myth?
One truth about money that most people regard as myth?
Yep.
I think, unfortunately, it is that money is my solution. Money is my answer to the problems that I have.
Wow.
I've heard it even from some great financially successful people that if you have a lot of money, it will take care of a lot of problems. And to some degree, that's true, but ultimately that will trip us up big time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good, man. That's awesome. And I think that goes to show that you can never get rid of problems, but when you put your trust and your faith in God, all else falls into place. So,
Amen.
Todd, man, once again, I love your perspective. I love you, dude. I love aligning and having a conversation with you. And thank you so much for being here. Look forward to sharing it with everybody.
Bless you, man. Thank you so much. And you still are and always will be my Iron Man.
Come on, man. That's what I'm talking about.